I thought the road dogs had a chance in last night's Game 5. I got to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. One of my wait to sees is that if the Sixers lose this series or don't make it to the conference finals, that Doc Rivers is going to get fired. When you are evaluating your coach, you are looking at the performance of your team, not just the results. You're looking at the process. And I say process in a very funny way, right? Because Philadelphia is all about trusting the process. And I'm looking for, has the coach or manager, has he lost the clubhouse? Has he lost the locker room? Are people tuning him out? So I'm looking at Doc Rivers during timeouts. They have this thing on TNT now, which is pretty cool. It's called Wired. And so there's microphones everywhere, and you get to hear what coaches are saying. And you think the coaches are doing something so mysterious and great. Hey, we got to work harder. We got to play hard. We got to box out. We got to get in there. I need you to go possession by possession. This is not to say coaches are bad coaches. It's just to say that during a game, you have to know what you're dealing with. And what you're dealing with are 5 guys who are sitting in front of you who aren't listening to one word you're saying. It's not like the old days where you'd have Larry Costello, who's in there and he's drawing up stuff. Pat Riley's got the clipboard and you're looking at X's and O's and arrows, and you've got cameras trying to look into the dugout. Cameras trying to look into the huddle. People, if you're my age, 469. People, if you're my age, you know very well what I'm talking about. There were players who always kept their full sweats on because they were not going to get in the game, like a Chuck Nevitt type of player, who would stand in a way that would guard the cameras from looking into the huddle. Because in the huddle, they're diagramming what they're going to do out of the timeout. Now, there's cameras in the huddle. There's microphones in the huddle. Everybody knows what they're doing because they're not doing anything. How many times after a timeout does a team come out and you're like, that's the play you designed? That turnover? That ISO? That box and one? That step back dribble down to the 3 seconds on the 24-second clock, and then boom, a 3 that clanks? The 76ers don't listen to Doc Rivers anymore. So when your coach has lost the clubhouse or the locker room, he's gone, especially if you don't have the results. The Sixers were not prepared for the game. They had no energy. Totally lethargic, totally out of sync, totally selfish. And by the way, James Harden is a shell of himself, and they better not extend him, although it's the Sixers, and their process would say, oh, we got to keep him for $50 large a year. It's done. When they look at the Heat, if you're Josh Harris, who's way focused on buying other teams, or David Blitzer, who's way focused on buying other teams, which is nice that all of your owners are so wealthy that they're buying all these other teams in the EPL, and it's great. But are they watching their own team at home and realizing, wow, we stink? And then they look at Miami and they look at Mickey Arison, who stays uber focused on things that float and things that float. Like floating in the air when you're a player, floating on the sea. Anyway, the Miami Heat are a team with depth, with character, with flow, with cohesiveness. People could argue that Joel Embiid could have won the MVP. Maybe he has a broken orbital bone and he was grumpy and he got hit in the face with a ball. People could argue that James Harden just is a little out of shape and a little overweight, and that could be the issue. People could say that Tobias Harris and Danny Green are great role players and they're great complements, and so they've got sort of a big four, and that Maxwell is a 21-year-old superstar to be who's out of control, frankly. But I'm looking at a Sixers team saying, I can't believe I chose them.